Mike D'Antoni will be back next season, saying, I think under the circumstances, Mike did a great job. We don't anticipate any kind of change. Kupchak went on to say D'Antoni has made adjustments and that the players seem to like him. See Dwight Howard. Will that decision have an impact on whether or not Dwight will stay with the Lakers? Stephen A., you've been on the record saying the two kind of go together. What are your thoughts?
I think it does. Listen, I think that it was... Listen, Mitch Kupchak can feel the way that he feels. Jim Buss can feel the way that he feels. I think it's a huge mistake if the priority is to re-sign Dwight Howard in the offseason to make statements of this magnitude. The fact remains that as recently as a week and a half ago, Dwight Howard and Mike D'Antoni were both in the papers and on .com, LA Times, ESPN.com, ESPN Radio in New York, etc., lamenting the fact that they were on opposite ends of the spectrum. Dwight Howard wanted the ball more. He felt like they should throw the ball inside. He felt that that would improve their defense drastically because it would give them an opportunity to get back on defense and get set. And that would make it difficult for opponents to score on the Lakers a little bit more. D'Antoni was very, very dismissive of those comments. You know, saying that he does what he does. If Kobe was on the floor, it would be outside, blah, 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 joking around about it. That kind of stuff. Well, D'Antoni is the same guy that was on the record calling Dwight Howard the future of this franchise. He was the same guy that benched Pau Gasol 3 days on the job. He's the same guy that talked about the importance of making sure that we do things in a manner that would ingratiate ourselves with Dwight Howard so we can re-sign him. And then you have Dwight Howard knowing Atlanta is coming his way, Dallas is coming his way, and the Houston Rockets are coming his way. He's going to have options. They don't have the option of paying him 5 years and $117 million because collective bargaining rules stipulate that if he goes to another team, the most they could offer him is 4 years at $87 million. But the reality is, you know, you look at Texas, it's a no state taxes. You look at the situation with James Harden and those boys being there, with an Asik, with a Dwight Howard, if he were to land there, Houston would be incredibly formidable. And it wouldn't be the microscope that is Tinseltown, Hollywood, L.A., particularly in the aftermath of the Kobe Bryant era, whenever that's going to come to an end, whether it's a year or 2 years from now. So all of those things being considered, you're Mitch Kupchak and those guys, and you're not sure about how Dwight Howard feels about playing for Mike D'Antoni because he wanted Phil Jackson coming out and definitively stating that Mike D'Antoni is the man for you next year and beyond. I don't know how wise it is to say that, but then again, the Lakers have shown us they could change their mind relatively quickly, which is evidenced by them getting rid of Mike Brown after just a 1-4 start to the regular season.
Jamil, your thoughts?
I think a lot of what you said, Stephen A., there's certainly a lot of truth to it. But here's the problem. As what was seen in Orlando, you can't turn your franchise over to Dwight. Dwight definitely doesn't want the pressure of having another coach that got subverted on his watch. Even though he had his issues with Stan Van Gundy and privately said numerous times how much he didn't want to play for Stan Van Gundy. When they finally pulled that trigger, Dwight didn't know how to handle it because everybody looked at him. Now, I'll be the first to tell you, I'm not sold on the fact that Mike D'Antoni fits the Lakers, whether they have Dwight or whether they don't. Because he certainly, even though they're talking about these adjustments that he made, I thought it was very telling that recently, it's like he just discovered that that Paul and Dwight Howard should play together. Like, really? You just now figured this out? So that says a lot about him. He's way too loyal to his system, and he doesn't seem to understand how to fit players around what they do best, how to play to their strengths, have them stay in their lanes. But all that being said, you just can't give Dwight Howard the power to pick another coach. You're the Los Angeles Lakers. You've always been able to attract a major superstar to play for you. You have to rely on that. You have to rely on the fact that you do things a certain way, and what you don't do, I don't care who the name is, you do not give them the power to pick your coach. If Dwight Howard wants to leave the Lakers, have him leave the Lakers, make him walk away. Don't just say, hey, you get to pick the coach, Dwight. We'll go based off whatever you want to do. That's a dangerous thing to do with him.
But, Jamel, I'm not saying that. You're absolutely right. I don't disagree with you. That's not what I was trying to say. I was just simply trying to say, you as a Laker may know what we've noticed about D'Antoni. You might decide that you don't want him. But to come out and be so forthcoming with, he's here next year no matter what. I'm saying you're the Lakers. You put yourself in that situation. I'm not saying empower Dwight Howard. I'm simply saying you don't come out front and say no matter what, we're going to keep D'Antoni, because that says to Dwight Howard and anybody else, excuse me, are you really analyzing this season and what has transpired? You really want to, this is really your vision for the future. That's where I'm going.
Well,
I'm not talking about empower Dwight Howard.
If the decision is just about we're going to let go of D'Antoni just because of what he did this season, how he performed, you're right. That's completely different. But whatever they want to do with Mike D'Antoni should not be based off how Dwight Howard feels or doesn't feel about him.
Skip.
To Stephen A's earlier point, as I watched the game last night, I was intrigued, wondering what was going on in Dwight's mind as he played against a team and he stopped their pick and roll repeatedly. And was he thinking, gee, this team is really good. This team's loaded. I could really fit with Asik, as Stephen A said. And he would. And I think it's more and more of a possibility given this news that D'Antoni is officially coming back. And the other intriguing subplot yesterday was that word broke, I'm assuming from Phil Jackson's camp, if you will, that all of a sudden Phil is interested in getting back in the game. Maybe as an executive, but it left the door slightly open that he would coach again. This simply turns up the heat on D'Antoni, on Jim Buss, and actually furthers or helps grease the skids for Dwight's exit, because it reminds everybody, yeah, Dwight did want Phil, and Phil's still sitting there right under their nose in L.A., has a relationship with someone in the front office, and they don't want him. Obviously, Jim Buss is fighting. That's why Jim Buss, this is all about pride, as Stephen A always points out. Jim Buss is saying, I'm going down with my guy D'Antoni. I'm going forward next year. No Phil Jackson. So that's got to stick in Dwight's craw a little bit.
Well, and what you said about Houston, I think, Skip, is really true. When you look at the dynamics, not just their team, but the type of city, in a lot of ways, it's very reminiscent of Orlando. A smaller size market, a team that's kind of built on some grit, some toughness. Right. You have Kevin McHale there, who I'm sure he probably respects. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot about that combination that fits.
And James Harden admitted to our broadcast crew before the game that he actively tried to recruit Dwight at the All-Star game when they were in Houston.
We were talking about this earlier. You said D'Antoni doesn't fit the Lakers players, but do you think he's a good coach in general?
I think
coaching-wise.
I think a big part about being a coach is being able to take whatever you're given and make it better. And I'm not so sure that Mike D'Antoni does it. I think he's a above average coach. Okay. I'm not willing to say, he's great or anything like that.
Lakers are in the playoffs, Jamel.
Hi, Laker fans. Hi. Reach out to me on Twitter.
Yeah, gosh.
Yeah, tell your cousin to stop tweeting me.
You see, she loves the trouble. Let's leave it right there. It's a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. Go Lakers. Coming up next.